We talk a lot about the future of work, but here's the thing, that future is already here. And for Black people, the stakes are high. From billboards that say stop hiring humans in San Francisco to Duolingo bragging that AI did 12 years of coursework in just 12 months, the future of work isn't just looming over us like a dark storm cloud. It's already raining. CrowdStrike, Shopify, and Duolingo now label themselves AI first companies. Their headcount decisions literally start with, can an AI model do it cheaper? Automation is speeding up. AI is doing more than just answering emails. It's writing music, it's analyzing job applicants, predicting our choices before we even make them. And yet, we're still told to hustle harder, to be grateful, and to stay compliant. But what if we didn't do that? Today, we're asking a radical question. What does the future of labor look like when Black creativity, not compliance, leads the way? Because survival is not enough. We're here to reimagine a world where work honors us, not erases us. I'm your host, Kasheia, and this is the Futures in Black podcast. It's the night for Black thought, for radical vision, and future building without permission. Let's reimagine what's next together. So, just a warning, we are going to get really deep in this episode. So, go ahead and get your notebook and your pen. If you're listening in the car, that's fine. You can double back later and take strategic notes, but I also want you to know that this episode is not a panic message. So you can think of it more as an empowerment guide, a plan of strategy for a future that is not very distant at all. And whether you are an employee, parent, a student, or even an entrepreneur, this episode is your heads up and your how to. You are not helpless in this next wave. We've never been helpless. But we do have to be informed and prepared. You don't need to fear AI. Hell, full disclosure, AI helps me put these podcasts together, from deep research on the topics I want to discuss to helping me refine and outline my messaging. It's very much a part of my daily life. But I'd be lying to you if I told you that I don't very often think about where this technology is going next and what that next place might look like. Because what we all have to understand is who's designing it, who's deploying it, and who's profiting from it. I've always heard that intention matters, and I can tell you that the minds behind the biggest frontier AI models do not intend on our success or cultivating our livelihoods. In fact, we are not even in the atmosphere of thoughts that circle in the room when conversations are happening about a future that will touch us the hardest. And for me, that's a problem. Because the real threat is not the tech itself, it's the systems that are being built with it. It's the minds behind it, the money behind it. The systems that at best don't consider us at all, and at worst actually perpetuate the same systems of harm that have existed since before America was even a nation. But in this room, in the Futures in Black room, this conversation is only about us, our survival, and our own strategy. Listen, we've always adapted, but now it's time to build a future on our terms. So we're going to kick things off with some very sobering numbers, and I want you to pay attention to them. By 2030, up to 4.5 million Black held jobs could vanish, disappear. And if you're a millennial like me, the fact that 20 years since Y2K has come and gone seems almost unreal. And it's easy to still see 2030 as far off. But y'all, it's less than 5 years away. just around the corner. The onset of COVID is further in our past than the year 2030 is in our future. That's 4.5 million Black livelihoods affected over the next 4.5 years. It's going to get ugly. That's in addition to the fact that we are 10% more likely to lose our jobs to automation than our white counterparts. But that part is business as usual, right? Because under racist capitalism, underserved communities tend to feel the brunt of negative outcomes more deeply, while positive effects tend to be diminished for us. And right now, 24% of Black workers are already in roles where over 75% of the tasks can already be automated today. That means if you think of you and about 3 of your working friends and family members, very likely at least one of you has a job that could be almost completely eliminated by automation and AI right now. These are now numbers. This is not theory or guesswork. Sam Altman himself, CEO of OpenAI, told Congress that ChatGPT is boosting productivity for 500 million people a week. That's 500 million workflows that have quietly shifted. And to my ears, that sounds like human labor being replaced without a single pink slip announcement. And corporate layoffs are already confirming what's happening. Just about maybe 2 weeks ago, Microsoft laid off 3% of its own workforce, about 6,000 people. That included their own director of AI for startups. It also included mostly software engineers and coders. Y'all, even the people who are building this technology ain't safe from it. Now, in full disclosure, Microsoft has not said that their layoffs are outright because of AI. They haven't said that, but knowing what I know about Microsoft and about the way this next AI movement is going, I would bet money on it. They've also said that about 30% of their code is now written by AI. And they anticipate within the next couple of years, like the next 2 or 3 years, that about 95% of their code is going to be written by AI. And they have previously made it known, it's been no secret, that they be replacing human workers with automated ones. These are not your standard cyclical layoffs. These layoffs are happening because people are being permanently replaced with algorithms. Brace and prepare now, because unless the government steps in, they're going to start happening more frequently and at larger scales than we could have ever anticipated. But we already know that all America really cares about in the AI-dominated future is beating China. And these corporations don't give a damn about anything that does not increase their bottom lines. Right now, these layoffs are trial runs for the future of work. Sooner than later, they'll be standard operation, and the future is moving fast. And the problem here is that, well, one of the problems is that Black workers are already on the front lines. We are overrepresented in jobs that are already disappearing and that have already disappeared. Cashiers, drivers, food service, customer support, jobs that are already being taken by kiosks, bots, and drones. And don't think for one moment that overrepresentation wasn't planned from the start, before AI replacements were even thought about. Systemic racism and classism did this. They limited us to the frontline positions where the most essential work is also the easiest to replace with automation. This was not happenstance. It was not by mistake. It was not an accident. We've often found ourselves the most likely casualties of capitalism, and the looming AI cold front is no different. Just think about McDonald's, your standard McDonald's. When's the last time you've been in one where you weren't first greeted by a kiosk? Take a peek behind the counter, and at most maybe 3 or 4 workers. You can guarantee that people lost their jobs when those kiosks were installed. And that's been many years now. And please don't get it twisted. Just because you're in a leadership position or sitting behind a desk does not mean that you are safe. AI moves fast and its reach is wide and ever expanding. what it can't do today, it might do better than you by next quarter. This is not a time to other yourself. This is a time to out strategize the system and look out for one another. Because within 10 years, your boss might be AI. The person you report to might not be a person at all. And I'm not exaggerating. Some CEOs are already using AI to make hiring, budgeting, and marketing decisions. Soon, your department head, maybe even your CEO, could literally be a model trained to optimize profit, not protect people. But let's zoom out a little because this isn't just workforce disruption, it's a global strategy. During a Senate AI oversight hearing that occurred about 3 weeks ago, the message was very clear. Whoever leads in AI will shape the 21st century global order. China is making AI the centerpiece of its national agenda. And the US is approaching AI like it did nuclear arms, with urgency, deregulation, and almost zero conversations about justice. Think Cold War strategy rebooted. Except this time, mass job loss isn't a side effect, it's a benchmark of progress. Congress is pouring billions into infrastructure, data centers, and semiconductors, and AI innovation. But safety nets, job protections, equity strategies, crickets. Technology is definitely infrastructure, but right now, not necessarily for us. CoreWeave now runs over 30 AI data centers in 15 states. Microsoft is investing in electricity generation to power AI, not to stabilize energy for working people. Lawmakers are talking about export strategies, chip pipelines, and broadband expansion, but they are not talking about us, people, Black people, not about the workers who are being displaced. They're not talking about what happens after automation hits your paycheck. This is an evolution scale paradigm shift. So let's get into it. Humans didn't outpace chimps because of strength, right? We did it with intelligence. A 1% change in our DNA led to an intelligence leap on an exponential scale. Now imagine an intelligence that outpaces us by many orders of magnitude. An intelligence difference that we can't even conceive. A machine that may not only outthink us, but that can conceive thoughts that our brains could never be wired to comprehend. Yet that's what OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, and Anthropic are building. What Sam Altman himself called super intelligent entities. He even told Congress when AGI arrives, and we'll talk about what AGI is, but he said that when AGI arrives, the world will look as different as today does from the 1500s. Just sit on that for a minute, right? He's saying that when AGI comes, artificial general intelligence, which could happen in the next 2 to 3 years, where it takes us could make today look as different from 2 or 3 years from now as the 1500s does from today. Insane. But if that's the scale of things that are coming, what do we need to survive and thrive in that world when these companies could be building the very demise of the human race? Because their actual strategy is to replace us. And that's the truth. So Y Combinator, where Altman was formerly president, actually put out a bat signal to startups. Find ways to replace human labor. I'm not joking. Like, this actually happened. Y Combinator, probably the largest venture capitalist platform that is behind many of the most successful tech brands we know today, made a call for AI startups to develop systems and algorithms that will replace at least parts of the workforce in mass. They're funding the obsolescence of human labor with billions of dollars. Companies like Mechanize aren't just mapping the economy to improve it, they're mapping it to replace every human bottleneck with AI. Wherever there's underproduction, underperformance, or a gap between what executives want and what reality delivers, they see opportunity. Not an opportunity to fix it or to understand it, but to cut it and replace it with automation. They're not sitting at a round table asking why the human side is falling short because they don't give a damn. Just unplug the worker and plug in the algorithm. But the deeper problem is that once AI becomes the gold standard for output, all human labor becomes a bottleneck because we can never match it. Humans need sleep. We need healthcare. We need livelihoods. AI does not. It doesn't need a lunch break. It doesn't need a fair wage. It doesn't need a safe place to work. So, how do you compete with something that doesn't even need to exist in reality to be profitable? Spoiler alert, you don't. But y'all, even empathy isn't safe from AI. A recent study asked 500 plus participants to compare emotional support responses from humans and from AI about common emotional situations, say like breakups, losing a loved one, etc. Across the board, participants rated AI as more compassionate. And that's even after they were told which responses were written by bots. So if your value at work is leading with heart, just know that AI is already pulling up a chair next to you. So what I want to do next is just kind of go through a very non-comprehensive list of jobs that could be highly impacted by AI, and then maybe some that have a little bit more time on their side. And we'll talk a little bit more beyond that about what to tell your kids like how do we or what to do even for yourself, like how do we confront this, how do we live another day when AI is running after us at exponentially increasing speeds. So some of the jobs that are most susceptible to being at risk of automation would be jobs that are heavy in data entry, call center work, customer and client services, sales, paralegal, like document review, claims adjusting, bookkeeping, things like that. Those particular jobs are highly susceptible to AI because they include a lot of repetitive tasks, and those are low hanging fruit for AI. And some jobs that might have at least some form of relative resistance for now are jobs like clinical therapy, social work, community negotiation. If you work in literature or a writer of fiction, if you're a choreographer, if you work in a very physically creative field, strategic product roles, ethical governance, and even field research, these are ones that AI won't be able to place so easily right now, but just keep in mind that nothing is guaranteed, especially when performance reviews are already being tied to your fluency with AI, like at Duolingo. So let's talk a little bit more about Duolingo. A lot of us probably know exactly what that is. It's one of the most well-known and longest running operating language learning apps in existence. I can think back as far as maybe 15 years ago, I remember using Duolingo myself. But they recently declared themselves in a memo to in a quote unquote leaked memo to its employees, they declare themselves AI first, although they insist that they are still putting people first, which is absurd. If you're like me, like what? You literally can't do both. You can't put both AI and humans first. But honestly, nothing about their AI first policy is people first. They're phasing out contract workers and replacing them with AI as quickly as they possibly can. And they'll only be hiring humans to do work that AI can't do yet. And if you're looking to work for Duolingo, you better know AI. Those who are hired will need to know how to interact with AI very well. Performance reviews will be based, at least in part, on AI learning, implementation, and usage. And just to be clear, Duolingo is far from an anomaly or one off. Now, let's go back to that AI Senate hearing from about 3 weeks ago, and something that I thought was really, really interesting, not just from the hearing, but also in some articles I was reading about after I watched the hearing. But Microsoft and Google said very plainly, we need way more electricity. And that's an understatement. They are not lying. With upwards of 500 billion, $500 billion being poured into data centers to run AI algorithms across the country, electricity generation isn't optional. It is mission critical because this ain't the Stone Ages, baby. AI needs that juice and apparently all the water, but that's a different episode. So Google's not just hiring coders. They might not be hiring them in mass at all anymore, but again, that's for later. But they are investing in training 100,000 electricians and about 30,000 apprentices. Google is betting real big on electricians. And that tells you everything you really need to know about the physical cost of our digital future. The AI revolution might run in the cloud, but it's built on the ground by real skilled working class labor. And companies know that there's a shortage. So they're growing a new class of technical workers. But just know it's not to empower, but it's to scale their agenda to eventually replace everybody. But still, in the moment, right now, this creates a window of opportunity, especially for young people considering a trade. Becoming a certified electrician isn't just a smart move, it's a future oriented power move, especially for young people who may be leaning towards a trade instead of a 4 year degree. And for real, that might be the move in this moment. We're seeing a rising demand for skilled trades, but also for workers who can adapt, problem solve, and think across multiple disciplines. That's what we call a T-shaped path to education and training. And I'll break down that concept a little later. But just know trades like this can absolutely be a part of it. The future favors people who are both grounded and flexible, skilled and strategic. Electricians trained in AI era infrastructure are going to be critical. But don't think for a second that AI won't creep in there too. That's why skill stacking and future proofing is everything right now. So at this point, you're probably wondering about the how, right? How do we secure our survival and success when bots are taking over the world? Well, there's no easy answer for that. A lot of this is speculative because we're in unmapped territory. I never thought that I'd be sitting here talking to anybody about the robot singularity. Like I just never, I'd always heard about it and was fascinated with the concept, but I never thought it was something that I'd have to deal with, possibly in my very lifetime. But I do have a few thoughts on how we can empower ourselves and our children to be ready for whatever comes next. For your kids and even your future, the world is T-shaped now. My son is studying archaeology at UNC Chapel Hill. Actually, he just transferred there from George Washington University in DC. And I can tell you that history, archaeology, just studies of cultures and things like that has been his passion for as long as I can remember. He always knew that's what he wanted to do. And now that my daughter is in high school, she's leaning towards literary arts or law, think more heavily law. And she's an incredible writer. She loves to argue. So I honestly think she's built for either one. And I've always encouraged tech, or at least learning technology. But I've never really been the type of parent who tries to like force my kids into my vision of their future. because I always felt that at the end of the day, they're the ones who have to show up to that job, not me. And yeah, of course, I want them to have security, opportunities, and futures that respect their brilliance, but there's no way for me to guarantee that, especially not in times like these, especially when now we have an administration that's hostile towards Black well being, Black history, and honestly, just knowledge itself. That's scary. It's hard to be optimistic. We're living in a time where intellect is under attack. So when you combine that with an AI future that's accelerating faster than most of us can process, it's easy to feel shaky, even scared and hopeless. And I get that. I feel that as a parent. But while I was researching for this episode, and yes, I used AI to help me out with that, I came across something that gave me a bit of a peace of mind, especially as a parent of kids who are pursuing liberal arts paths. And it's a learning model called T-shaped education. And it's really simple, but it clicked for me. So think of the top of the T as like broad, interdisciplinary liberal arts learning. So critical thinking, writing, ethics, philosophy, history, that flexible, adaptive mindset is really going to matter. And then the stem of the T is for like deep practical tech skills. So, and they might not even be like coding and programming or engineering. It's things like prompt engineering, interpreting AI generated data, and understanding the basics of computer logic or coding languages. You won't need to be a developer per se, but you do need to speak the language. And for a bonus edge, again, ethics, cultural fluency, systems thinking, understanding how tech affects people, how decisions ripple through communities, how algorithms can reproduce harm, that's where the real human advantage lies. We've been sold this idea that hyper specialization is the safest bet. But in this new world, that narrow path might leave you boxed in. The edge is going to belong to people who are interdisciplinary, multifaceted, and strategically flexible. And while we're on it, there's a growing epidemic of AI dependency in colleges right now. Students are using AI so much and so mindlessly that it's literally causing professors to quit their professions. Imagine writing a paper with ChatGPT about the importance of intellectual rigor and the learning experience and not seeing the irony. We're in wild times. And I'm not going to go too deep into this right now, maybe in another episode, but just know that we need to make sure that we're encouraging the responsible and ethical use of AI in education, not just to get an A on a paper, but for growth, for integrity, and for future readiness. And entrepreneurs, this is a wake up call. Upskilling isn't just for those with 9 to 5 aspirations. If you want a business, no matter its size, that continues to be viable, you got to learn how to love and use AI. There's no way around it. And the real master key to AI is understanding that it isn't just a task rabbit. Sure, it can absolutely write your emails, those things that you'd rather not be doing, draft product descriptions, analyze your business budget. But if you're serious about implementing AI to truly establish, grow, and expand your business, you'll need to go beyond the basic automating repetitive tasks that I see and hear every so-called AI expert say. AI can and should be your research assistant, your content partner, your strategic planner, creative co-pilot. And of course, AI is not perfect and you have to use it with some level of discernment, but if your business is not embedding AI into its core strategy today, someone else's businesses will outpace yours tomorrow. Let's pivot. So let's pivot back to AGI, artificial general intelligence, that I mentioned earlier, because there's a lot of talk, hype, and naysaying around AI reaching AGI status. But my personal take is that, myth or not, it's still moving. AGI is essentially artificial intelligence that will be able to think, generate original ideas, communicate and solve problems, and interact in the world in a way that would be indistinguishable from humans. And while the concept and the debates are intriguing, it doesn't really matter. People are debating right now whether GPT-03, which is my personal favorite model, is AGI. But the gag is that even if we never actually see AGI, even if it's not a thing, even if it's just a marketing gimmick, AI is already disrupting markets, workforces, economies, education systems, and businesses right now. And it's only in its infancy. AI is not going anywhere. This isn't a fleeting moment in history. It's here to stay. And the reason I'm so passionate about Black folks staying educated about AI on both a use case basis and a policy basis is because too often we are not even an afterthought in the frameworks of these things they build. Too often we are left behind. We're last to know or understand. And that's not a reflection of our capabilities. It's a reflection of how systemic racism and untrustworthy government and devious corporations have made us rightfully fearful or unwilling to move with trends. And while I love that we set trends instead of follow them, sometimes it can be to our detriment when the entire world is shifting and our livelihoods are being affected. And the key is that our strategy has to be twofold. We have to compete now, but we also have to plant the seeds to build beyond now. In the world we live in, self-preservation is necessary, but it can only take us so far. You've probably heard the proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. But let's be real. Self-preservation is only a byproduct of Western capitalism. It teaches us to hoard, to hustle, to scrape together what we can right now, to take care of yourself because no one else will. That's the message. And that message has us on a hamster wheel, running hard and fast just to stay ahead of the wave. So many of us don't feel like we have the luxury of investing in a future we may not even live to see. Some of us, if we're lucky, can think about legacy within our own families. But a lot of folks are just trying to keep the lights on, trying to get through the next round of bills, trying to put food on the table for this generation, never mind the next one. In episode 2, we touched on Trisha Hersey's concept of dream space thefts, how our time, energy, and imagination have been hijacked to fuel systems that enrich the few while starving the many. They've stolen our capacity to imagine beyond the fiscal year, beyond the latest crisis. And when your dreams are starved, so is your future. But I'm challenging Black folks to push through the exhaustion, to expand our imaginations even when it's hard, even when it feels selfish, even when it feels impossible. Compete now, leverage AI, learn AI, stay informed, pivot smartly, get into industries and educational spaces that have a chance at keeping up with automation. Use these tools to buy yourself time, clarity, and power. But also, y'all, we got to build something else entirely. We've got to build a future that isn't rooted in systems that never had us in mind. Because let's be honest, capitalism will never let all of us thrive. Just ask yourself, are you okay grinding your life away just to earn a crumb of success for your household? Or are you willing to sow seeds for a harvest that you may never taste, but maybe your great grandchildren just might? Are you willing to imagine a future that our people have never had the chance to live? One where systems are based on community, not capital, where exchange is rooted in contribution, not exploitation. Because they, and when I say they, I'm specifying the government, corporations, policymakers, they're not planning for us. They never have, and they're not about to start now. Only thing they're planning is for our continued compliance, our continued labor, and our willing participation in the very systems that exploited our ancestors in the most egregious ways. They're planning to replace us the very second they can find a cheaper supply chain. And where their capitalistic dreams come back to bite them in the ass, because they always do, where does that leave us if we haven't been building a Black ass future of our own? Now, I know we just talked about a lot. We hit on a lot for the last 45 plus minutes. And I get it, it's a lot. I mean, who thought that in our lifetimes we'd be having a serious conversation about what to do when the robots take over? But here we are. So, yeah, it was a lot, but it was necessary. And this next part, though, this is where we talk back. Because Black workers and creatives aren't just sitting still, waiting to lose our livelihoods, our jobs, and our joy. We're resisting, we're innovating, and we're reimagining out loud. And in case I haven't said this enough, Black imagination is not just art, it is strategy. We don't just dream, we design. We've been creating survival systems in the face of extractive ones for generations now. And now we're coding those systems into something new. What we're going to dive into next, these aren't just theories, these are real models in practice right now, real people, real futures being built as we speak. Let's talk about something most media won't touch, which is Black led cooperative economics as a model for liberation. In Jackson, Mississippi, an organization called Cooperation Jackson has been quietly building an ecosystem for over a decade now, one that is rooted in solidarity, ownership, and collective self determination. And this is not a theory, it's a blueprint in motion, so pay attention. Their goal is to create what they call a solidarity economy, a system of worker owned, democratically managed enterprises designed to meet the needs of the community, not the demands of capital. I pull this quote from their site. Cooperatives put capital or wealth in the service of working people rather than making working people subservient to capital. That's deep, y'all. Let's unpack that. In our current economy, capital owns labor. That means decisions are made by stakeholders and shareholders, even absentee, often disconnected from the people who are doing the labor that generates the wealth. Workers sell their time and profits flow upwards. But in contrast, cooperatives completely flip that model. In worker co ops, labor owns and directs the capital. Decisions are made democratically by the people who are doing the work, and the profits are reinvested into the community and into the members of the co op. And the ultimate goal is not just to grow returns and grow the bottom line, but to meet the needs of the people, build resistance, and share power. And Cooperation Jackson brings this to life. Their model isn't abstract, it's deeply practical and community rooted. Here are just a few examples of what they do. Their businesses are worker owned. So they have something called Freedom Farms Cooperative. It's a food sovereignty initiative where farm workers don't just labor on the land, they own it. They set the prices, they share the profits, and they grow what they decide is needed. Then there's Green Team Landscaping and Community Production Initiative. This combines skilled trades like landscaping with access to digital manufacturing tools like 3D printers and fabrication labs. And the workers manage the production pipeline and keep the profits. Then there's Land and Housing Justice through the Fannie Lou Hamer Community Land Trust. This land trust acquires properties throughout West Jackson, taking them out of the speculative housing market. And residents can secure long term, affordable housing with every mortgage payment building equity for them, not for banks. This is about more than affordability, it's about ownership, dignity, and intergenerational wealth. And then there's something that they designed called the build and fight formula, which is a two-pronged strategy to build co-ops, land trusts, mutual aid networks, food systems, and training centers that serve community needs. And then the fight model includes strategy to impact local and national policy that will target and dismantle exploitative, extractive systems. They aren't just trying to make capitalism more ethical. They're building something entirely new, an economic democracy where the people who do the work own the means of production and benefit directly from it. And they're doing this in Mississippi, a place that has long been used as a symbol of racial and economic oppression. That's not just strategy, that's reclamation. So, in these types of co ops, where does the money go? Well, any surplus that is generated by these co ops isn't hoarded, it's intentionally circulated within the local ecosystem. And it funds new cooperative businesses, youth training programs, shared tools and production spaces, community run voucher exchange systems, which is something that is in progress. And unless members vote otherwise, the money stays rooted in the neighborhood. It never leaves the soil it grew from. This is a modern day Sankofa, looking to ancestral wisdom, cooperation, and collective stewardship and bringing it forward into today's struggle. So in Chicago, there's a Black woman led worker cooperative called Shy Fresh Kitchen. And it's showing how powerful this model can be, even in high stakes industries like food service. They're a Black owned, worker owned catering cooperative based in Chicago's South Side. And all the employees can become owners, vote on decisions, and share in profits. They started in 2020 when 5 formerly incarcerated women launched the co op in the middle of the pandemic. They saw meal shortages as an opportunity to prove that a small co op could feed a city ethically, equitably, and efficiently. So, what they do is they cook and deliver nutritious, culturally relevant meals to schools, senior centers, transitional housing programs, and more. And they're actually in direct competition with large food service distributors and often outperform them on both quality and community reinvestment. And this matters because it brings economic justice. Shy Fresh offers living wages and ownership pathways for people who are often locked out of the economy. It provides food sovereignty by keeping food dollars circulating in Black and brown neighborhoods. And it's a perfect proof of concept because it scales like a business, but it operates like a movement successfully. And their long term vision is to build an ecosystem of co ops, farms, kitchens, housing, education, all networked and rooted in shared wealth. Shy Fresh isn't just a catering company. It's a living case study in how we reclaim power, dignity, and capital on our own terms. And there's resistance in real time in other models as well. These are not the only examples. Black folks are finding ways to push back and reclaim power within existing systems too. So there's platform hacking. In DC, rideshare drivers organize a mass app log off to trigger surge pricing, and then they log back in to get the cash out. That's guerrilla labor strategy in the algorithmic age. Names like Joy Buolamwini, which we've talked about before, Timnit Gebru, and Deborah Raji aren't just footnotes in the tech ethics conversation. They are leading it, calling out bias and facial recognition, algorithmic injustice, and the lack of ethical accountability in big tech. These Black women aren't just some diversity tokens. They are the blueprint for what's next. And even things like the Black TikTok strike that happened some years ago, when Black creators stopped dancing and the app went silent. This wasn't just protest, it was proof. Our creativity is capital. And when we pull it back, the machine sputters. Same with the ongoing Target boycott. Pulling our dollars hurts their margins because we are not expendable, even when they act like we are. And one day, when y'all are ready, we're going to talk about how these companies weaponize DEI, not to empower us, but to profit off our grief. And actually, fuck it, we're going to get into it right now. Because after 2020, companies cashed in on DEI like it was a product launch. They got grants, they got clout, headlines, and our temporary trusts. But now they're ghosting us, right? The DEI departments are vanishing, budgets are cut, Black businesses are being quietly dropped, and we're watching it. We're paying attention in real time. Just how fast they retreat when the spotlight fades. But Cooperation Jackson, Shy Fresh Kitchen, platform resistance, algorithmic justice, cultural strikes, these are not just isolated stories. They're evidence of something bigger because we're designing and defending our futures right now in real time. From food sovereignty to tech ethics, From worker-owned businesses to coordinated digital walkouts, we're laying the foundations of an economy that doesn't just include us, but that is built for us and by us. We're reclaiming ownership of our labor, land, creativity, and our data. We're reinventing power, not just climbing their corporate ladders, but we're building something entirely different beside it. We are creating systems that are grounded in care, in equity, and mutual responsibility, not compliance, not control. Because this isn't charity work and this isn't theory, it's economic insurgency and it's already happening. And what all of this actually reveals is that our resistance doesn't always look like protests. Sometimes it looks like a kitchen. Sometimes it looks like a dance that we don't perform. Sometimes it looks like a data set someone dares to audit. It looks like land trust. It looks like worker cooperatives. It looks like a refusal to stay trapped in a system that only survives because we continue to fuel it. We are not asking to be included anymore. We are not negotiating to be seen. We are building our own economies, our own tools, our own models of care and value. Because we're not just going to survive this shift, we're going to shape it. And this resistance is not new, of course. It's ancient. From slavery to sharecropping, from factories to gig apps, America has always treated Black labor as expendable. And now with AI in the driver's seat, their playbook has not changed, y'all. It's just been digitized. And let's talk about that. This cycle is very familiar when you look at it from a historical lens. Every time leaders talk about global competitiveness, AI supremacy, or innovation, you'll notice what's missing: any meaningful mention of racial equity. Because when Black people aren't at the table, we're not considered innovators or stakeholders. We're labor reserves, disposable, extractable, and ultimately replaceable. And that is not by accident, it's definitely by design. Capitalism is in America's DNA. America didn't start as a country, it started as a joint stock experiment, a collection of colonies financed by European investors who expected returns on their capital. Not returns from ideas, but returns from extraction, fur, sugar, tobacco, land, and enslaved labor. From day one, wealth accumulation and human exploitation were fused, not just adjacent. One made the other possible. And to this day, there's not a dollar in circulation that can't trace its roots to the slave trade. Slavery wasn't America's original sin, it was its original business model. Slavery is the prototype for modern capital. Enslaved Africans were the original yield-bearing assets. They appeared on accounting ledgers, backed loans, and fueled entire mortgage markets in the 1800s. Whole plantation economies were structured around the capture, sale, and labor of Black bodies. The transatlantic slave trade didn't just fund the colonies, it helped invent modern capitalism. Even the early stock market was shaped by this. European joint stock companies like Dutch West India Company issued shares to fund slaving voyages, ships, guns, and other infrastructure used for one purpose: human trafficking. And America, it scaled that logic. It created a version of chattel slavery that was systematic, industrial, and generational. It made owning people a normalized, legal, and wildly profitable enterprise. What we're watching now with automation is not a glitch in capitalism, it's the next phase of the same story. Automation is capitalism's latest holy grail: labor without labor costs, a high-tech echo of the antebellum fantasy: profit at scale with no obligations to the people who make it possible. And let's be clear, Black and brown workers are still overrepresented in the exact jobs that are most vulnerable to automation. As we talked about earlier, cashiers, drivers, food service, customer support. Because we're already standing on the front lines again. Only this time, the replacement isn't a person, it's an algorithm. And while the world debates whether AI is sentient, we're barely having a conversation about what it means to replace human labor with machine logic. But capitalism doesn't give a fuck. It has never cared. Its only mandate is to exploit, extract, and dispose. But here's what happens when AI enters the equation. Labor becomes oversupplied, wages collapse, productivity skyrockets, wealth concentrates at the top and faster than it ever has before. And why is that? Because algorithms don't unionize. They don't need healthcare. They don't rest. They don't ask questions. They don't challenge the system. They are the system. And as long as they generate output without demanding humanity, capitalism will prioritize them. Right now, AI doesn't have a moral compass. It doesn't recognize exploitation, its own or anyone else's, at least not yet. So, in the meantime, to the machine of capital, our intellect, our creativity, our dreams all become obsolete. We're not people anymore. We're inefficiencies waiting to be cut. And the result is the wealth gap accelerates to a point where the shoreline of those in power is no longer even visible to those who are doing the work right now. This whole AI first obsession, it's an antebellum logic in a new uniform. Exponential profit, labor costs driven to zero, just no shackles and add a little code. It's the dream of slavery reimagined through silicon and servers, an economic model that generates endless wealth without any moral requirement to share. And without regulation or resistance, it will recreate the same rich get richer loop that fueled the Gilded Age, except now it's at machine speed. Sankofa teaches us to go back and get what we need, to reach into our past and bring forward what should have never been left behind. And while capitalism looks back to slavery for a blueprint, we look back to cooperative economics, community care, and shared power. If AI is going to reshape labor, we have to reshape who benefits from it. That's why we talk about worker co-ops. That's why we talk about community land trusts. That's why we talk about data dividends, where the information we generate every day becomes a resource that we own and that we are compensated for. And these aren't just pipe dreams. Many of this is already in motion. Automation isn't just another efficiency hack. It's capitalism's tech-powered attempt to resurrect its original sin. Profit without payout to the people whose lives make that profit possible. And we have a choice. We can let it happen again, or we can build something that breaks the cycle for good. Right now, the AI economy is a perverted Sankofa, looking back at the ugliest parts of human history for inspiration. And we need to look back at the best of ours. And James Boggs, he knew this day was coming. In the early 60s, Detroit auto worker and revolutionary thinker James Boggs saw the writing on the wall. Working in the Chrysler line by day and organizing by night, Boggs witnessed firsthand how automation was beginning to displace Black workers. Those who had only recently even secured industrial jobs after generations of exclusion. He understood that this wasn't just a technological shift, it was a seismic economic transformation that threatened to render Black labor obsolete. In his 1963 book, The American Revolution, Pages from a Negro Worker's Notebook, Boggs warned that automation would hit Black communities first and hardest. He argued that the civil rights movement needed to expand its focus beyond just legal equity and legal equality to address the economic realities of a rapidly automating society. Boggs called for a new Declaration of Human Rights, and it was tailored for the age of abundance, a world where machines could produce plenty, but the benefits were not equitably shared. And tell me we don't see this today. He emphasized that without intentional action, technological progress would deepen existing inequalities rather than alleviate them. He wrote, and I quote, that what we need today is a new declaration of human rights to fit the new age of abundance. This nation cannot long endure short on rights and long on goods. Boggs recognized that from the plantation to the factory, and now to the gig economy, Black workers have always been on the front lines of economic change. First to be exploited, first to be discarded. Yet he also believed in the power of Black communities to resist and reimagine. He saw that the struggle wasn't just about jobs, it was about our dignity, purpose, and the right to participate fully in society on our terms. Boggs advocated for a radical restructuring of the economy, one that valued people over profits and community over capital. His vision included worker co-ops, community-based education that prepare people for meaningful participation in a changing world, and political movements that connected economic justice with civil rights. And today, as AI and automation continue to reshape the labor market, Boggs' insights are more relevant than ever. Black communities are once again facing disproportionate challenges, but we're also leading the way in creating alternative models of work, ownership, and resistance. From tech cooperatives to mutual aid networks, Boggs' spirit of declaration of human rights lives on in the ongoing struggle for a just and equitable society. Now, I want you to pause. We're just gonna do like a little experiment. We've talked about a lot of deep shit, right? We've talked about a lot of stuff today. Very important stuff, but I know that it's heavy and I know that it can be a lot to take in. But I just want you to pause for a moment. If you're in a place to like close your eyes, just do that. For real, just, loosen your jaw, unclench your shoulders, and breathe. Breathe in possibility. And exhale the lie that this is all there is. Now just start to imagine otherwise. Imagine Black farmers tending solar-fed vertical farms where collard greens climb up glass paneled walls and fresh herbs grow beneath soft LED sun. Farms not owned by corporations, but by the very hands that till the soil and harvest the joy. Imagine gig workers logging onto platforms that they built together, cooperatively owned, data respecting, algorithmically transparent. No more rating systems coded in bias, no more middlemen taking half. Every ride, every delivery, every hour, feeding the people and feeding the community bank. Imagine rest woven into the schedule, not earned by burnout. Imagine Mondays that don't start with dread. Imagine work that moves with your rhythm, not against it. Imagine where healing isn't a sabbatical, it's a baseline. Imagine childcare cooperatives, tech apprenticeships in neighborhood libraries, financial systems that forgive. Imagine land held in trust, not to be flipped, but to be rooted. Imagine your grandmother's stories coded into blockchain archives, protected and honored. Imagine artistry backed by universal income, not Instagram likes. Imagine youth building AI tools that carry griot wisdom. Imagine dreamers being paid to dream. This is not a fantasy, it's liberation technology. It's what happens when we stop trying to fit into their systems that we already know was not made for us. And when we start to design new ones, systems where we are not just included but centered, not just surviving but thriving, not just hired but owning. This is the interlude between exhaustion and emergence, between extraction and expression, between what we inherited and what we are about to build. So dream deeply, then wake up with your hands ready, because the future isn't coming to save us. We're here to shape it. So now that we've walked through the crisis, the resistance, let's talk strategy. Because automation might kill the 9 to 5, but I'll be damned if we let it kill self-determination. And we can be real, there is no future of work worth signing on to if we don't take ownership in it. And that brings me back to that Senate hearing, that so-called AI oversight hearing, the one that felt more like a Silicon Valley earnings call than public policy. Every CEO showed up with the same talking points. AI is inevitable. Let us build fast. Keep the regulation light. And in the same breath, they admitted millions of jobs will be lost. But of course, they did not talk about justice or reparations or ownership or redistribution. If the same mindset that wrote the Wall Street bailout is now writing the UBI checks, guess who's cashing in again? And guess who's left begging? So let's talk about UBI, Universal Basic Income. Basically, it's saying, okay, AI is coming for your job, it came for your job, and it has your job. So here's a monthly check. But the problem is that they're not changing the system that caused the crisis. They're just softening the blow after it hits. It's a company store remix, plantation rations, but with a fintech interface. This isn't liberation, it's hush money, direct deposited. With UBI, your worth becomes how much data you generate, how much content you consume, how many purchases you make, not your joy, not your creativity, not your purpose. This is survival as a service, a cushion, not a cure. So what would real equity actually look like? It might look like federal job guarantees where the government becomes an employer of last resort, offering meaningful work that builds society, like green jobs, elder care, public tech infrastructure, climate resilience, digital education, local media. Jobs that have purpose, not just paychecks. It could look like worker owned enterprises, replacing stock buybacks and CEO bonuses with shared dividends, cooperative decision making, and equity that actually means something. Or it might look like public tech and data trusts, where we treat our data like a public resource because it is. We establish community owned data trusts where residents earn data dividends. Communities help set tech policy, and AI is developed with us, not at our expense. If AI is trained on our faces, our voices, our slang, and our labor, it should pay us, not replace us. So in 2022, the AI Training Act was passed. And it's something that maybe we can use to fund co-op owned upskilling centers in Black communities where participants will learn AI literacy, prompt engineering, data governance, ethics, and machine learning, not just so we survive the shifts, but so that we own a piece of it. And maybe we look at, instead of universal basic income, we look at universal basic services, because in a society where money is essentially meaningless, we don't need more cash. We need fewer costs. So guaranteed housing, healthcare, transit, broadband, education. You don't need a $2,000 check if your rent is $400 and your prescriptions are free and your Wi-Fi is city owned. You don't need a bigger check if the system isn't bleeding you dry. You can take a quick look at what they're doing in Barcelona, where they've already implemented municipal broadband, worker co-ops, and platform regulations. Because it isn't just about handouts. It's about public infrastructure for human dignity. Congress is slow to act when it comes to us, but we don't wait, we build. We have to. We need to lock in housing affordability, keep gentrification out, build neighborhood equity, recirculate capital locally through credit unions and public banks, fund our businesses, start ourselves, serve our own goals. It's Sankofa strategy. Bring forward what our ancestors built, which is Again, mutual aid societies, freedom schools, cooperative economics. And then we can add in DAO governance, digital wallets, blockchain accountability. And now you've got scalable Black infrastructure powered by ancestral wisdom and modern tools. Because this isn't about escaping capitalism, it's about outgrowing it. So, what can you do right now? What are some steps that you can take right now? And no, these are not going to change the world immediately. We're not going to just walk into a new liberated future tomorrow. But like we talked about, our strategy is twofold, right? We compete now by learning about AI and being educated about automation, but then we also plant seeds for the future. And what can you do right now? One, you can pressure your local officials to pilot job guarantees, not just UBI experiments. Seed a micro co op in your community powered by mutual aid, not venture capitalist money. Audit your current expenses. What disappears if healthcare, housing, and Wi Fi are public? And organize around that. Maybe join a digital rights organization fighting for algorithmic accountability and data dividends. And find your AI people, right? Folks who are learning about the tech, not just to survive, but to innovate and own it. Ownership is greater than optics because I get the appeal of UBI, right? In a broken system, even crumbs might feel like a meal. You know, a free check and we don't have to work. Nobody has to work. And they're giving us $5,000, $10,000 a month and covering everything for us. It sounds like a utopia, but it's not. Because UBI is a bandage. It's not a real blueprint. It might cushion the fall after AI domination, but it won't change who owns the ground that you land on. And we're not just trying to survive the fall, we're trying to redesign the entire playground, a public one, a democratic one, and a Black led one. Because they want to own the AI and we want to own our future. So let me step out of the stats and strategy for just a minute because this part is personal. This isn't a white paper or policy brief. It's just me, right? These are my thoughts. These are what I observe. Because sometimes it's not just about numbers, it's about soul. You'll hear a lot of different takes from futurists, economists, technologists about what is coming next. But while the future is most assuredly tech-philic, there's something we can't afford to lose in the algorithmic glow up, and that is human creativity. As the world keeps shifting fast and unpredictable, as we keep heading into frontiers we don't even have the language for yet, I can't help but to wonder if human creativity will become a scarcity premium. In a sea of AI generated sludge and content for content's sake, I think that real expression will rise in value. Not because it's perfect, but because it's flawed, soulful, and lived in. I think about the kind of art that I like to buy, not a mass produced print. I need the texture, the brushstroke, the part where the paint is just a little thicker on one side because the artist's hand slipped, or maybe he got emotional. AI can't do that. I think about Toni Morrison and how her words hold weight. Each one is layered with experience, memory, rhythm, and resistance. Her writing repels and seduces at the same time. AI could never. It can mimic the syntax, but it will never live the life that made the sentences possible. And I think that's worth saying out loud. If you have kids, friends, loved ones who still want to create in a world that pushes automation and duplication, encourage that, defend that, because art has always been more than pretty. It's been a protest, a mirror, a microscope, a soul print. Creativity still matters. It still carries weight and it still carries meaning. And as the world around us becomes more synthetic, more copied, more on demand, a one of one human made song, poem, story, or painting, that might become the most valuable thing in the world. And if there's one thing Black people embody, baby, it's creativity, not just as culture, but as survival code. That creativity will build our liberated futures. And our lived experience is the medium. The stories we tell, the jokes we crack, the flavors we cook with, the style we walk in, the language that shape shifts mid sentence depending on who we're talking to. That is culture. That's memory. That's life. Yeah, AI can write, but it can't remember the way we do. It didn't sit in the kitchen listening to your aunties drag each other with love. It didn't grow up hearing gospel on Sunday, hip hop on Friday outside on the block, and warning shots on Tuesday. It didn't sit in the beauty parlor for braids and come out with a story. Black creativity is encoded with memory, emotion, and cultural legacy, not prompts. Black creativity is intellectual property, not just raw material. We are not here to be mined for our resources. Our dialect, our dances, our slang, our style, it's all been copied, commodified, and fed back to us by systems that never gave us credit, never paid us properly, never protected what was ours. And so it's time we stop treating our culture like a vibe. It's infrastructure, it's intellectual property, it's future technology. We need to start thinking about our creative output the same way we think about tech stacks and code bases. We're not just inspiration for other people, we're our own architecture. And it's time we start gatekeeping accordingly. You've seen the trend where things are labeled human written, hand played, made without AI. And that's happening for a reason. People are craving connection, authenticity, story, the little cracks in our voice, the offbeat in the rhythm, the soul in the flaws. Even US lawmakers floated a national content labeling system to tell people what was human made versus what was AI assisted and what was fully synthetic. And we need to get ahead of that and claim the human made space right now before someone else decides what that means. So, what else can you do right now to honor your creativity, to protect it, and future proof your brilliance? Again, level up the AI literacy. Don't run from it, y'all. Just study it, get to know it. You don't need to code to understand how this technology affects you, affects your job, your art, your kids' education. OpenAI even has free AI literacy training for beginners. There's no excuses. And you're not too late. You're right on time if you start right now. Build future proof skills. We're not just talking about AI skills, we're talking about human superpowers. Exercise that creativity. Stretch your mind to think strategically. Build emotional intelligence. Craft your storytelling abilities. Community building. Stop just using AI to write captions. Use it to map out launches, write your marketing funnel, draft your proposals, design your business systems. Because survival isn't stagnation. Survival is curiosity and upskilling for us. Join or build something, a worker co-op, a mutual aid group. And I'm not just talking to y'all. I'm talking to myself. Learning collectives. Get grounded in people, not just these platforms. I'm looking to join one myself. Maybe I'll find one or start one. But either way, we all got to stay plugged in and stay rooted. And support Black tech and other creators like Afrotech. It's a premier platform that connects Black professionals in technology. It has like annual conferences and digital media. It's real big on fostering community and innovation and opportunities for Black technologists and entrepreneurs. Black Girls Code has been around a long time, and it empowers young Black girls by providing them with the skills and confidence to go into tech related education and careers and computer science. They provide workshops and other programs, and their goal is to diversify the tech industry. Then there's Black in AI, and it is a community of Black researchers and practitioners who are working in artificial intelligence. Their focus is on increasing the presence and inclusion of Black individuals in the AI field through advocacy, mentorship, and collaboration. In this world of AI, Black representation is going to be crucial. But Black self determination in tech is the actual win for us. While the tech world is going AI first, we got to go Black first in intention, in our investment, and in our imaginations. And finally, rest and dream, y'all. Don't let them steal that from you. Make space, not just to produce, but to imagine, to feel, to recover and recuperate from the systems of harm. that you endure every day. Make space for yourself. If you haven't listened to episode 2, I suggest going back and sitting with it, because this movement isn't just powered by strategy and data. It's powered by dreaming out loud. The revolution isn't just about technology. It's going to be rest and softness that helps get us there. And remembering that we don't need to earn the right to take a breather. So, what does it really mean to be creative and not compliant? When companies are pushing forward to their antebellum delusion, it means that we don't wait for permission to shine. We don't shrink to fit into systems that were never meant for us. We don't ask if we're allowed to lead, we just lead. We write our own code. We build our own economies. We dream our own fucking future. Because we're not going to keep waiting for permission to be free. We're building futures in black. And let's be real clear, they can't do it without us. And honestly, they shouldn't want to, but they're going to try. This is Futures in Black, bold visions, black voices, no permission needed. Be sure to share this episode with a friend, a colleague, your family. Visit the website www.futuresinblack.com. Feel free, please send me a message. If you have questions or concerns or just want to make comments, definitely drop me a line. Let me know. I'll be happy to address it on an episode. But we're going to get on out of here, and I will talk to you next time.